Part 47. Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, De Chuanchi. Chapter 462. On this day, the three of them still worked tirelessly to study the Tizot. Although there was no progress on one of them, Tony and Banner became more and more obsessed with it. Obviously, both of them understand the truth. The more difficult it is to make a breakthrough, once some research results are obtained, it will play an unimaginable role, which will be of huge benefit to themselves and all human beings. On this day, Asgard also welcomed the coalition forces of Hela and the Dark Elves. With Hela's presence, Asgard's defense was breached immediately. A large number of Dark Elves drove huge space battleships into the sky above Asgard. More Dark Elves swarmed onto the Rainbow Bridge on foot and started a fierce fight with the Asgardians. Heimdall, who was responsible for guarding the Rainbow Bridge, immediately planned to fight the enemy, but then he heard the order given to him by Odin. Let him avoid the enemy, wait for his orders, and pick up Yejuju at the critical moment. Naturally, he did not dare to disobey Odin's order, so although Heimdall was extremely unwilling, he only glanced at the swarming enemies and chose to avoid them. This can be regarded as indirectly saving his life. He was not killed by Hela like in the play. The god of thunder immediately took the hammer and flew to the battlefield. With the hammer carrying lightning, it fell from the sky and killed a large number of Dark Elves. It was at this time that Thor met his sister Hela. At this time, Hela was no longer the goddess-like person he remembered in the past. Rightward arrow. Wearing a black tight-fitting outfit with green lines that exposed her collarbone and shoulders, she showed off her hot figure. There was a black cloak hanging behind her and a pair of big black eyes, making her look extremely evil. There were many black tentacles sticking out from his head, and he was holding a long black sword in each hand, and he was slowly walking towards Thor step by step. There was an evil smile on her face, and she didn't look at Twoer as her younger brother at all. Instead, she looked more like she had deep hatred. I wanted to kill him right away, so I just gritted my teeth. Thor was surprised to see his sister whom he had not seen for so many years and asked. Sister, why is it you? Ha ha, ha ha. My dear brother, long time no see? I thought you had already forgotten you, the sister who was exiled by his father's own hands. I didn't expect you to still remember me. Ha ha. Today, I'm back, and I'm here to take it away everything that originally belonged to me. And yours life. Don't blame me. If you want to blame your God King Father who is aloof and has no family affection at all. At this moment, a cold voice came from behind. Hela, what nonsense are you talking to him? All Asgardians deserve to die, kill him. When Thor heard the sound and looked over, he saw Malekith's disgusting pale face, and he immediately shouted angrily. It was you, the Dark Elf King, Malekith, it was you who led the people to attack Asgard. You damn bug that should be in the sewers. I shouldn't have listened to my father and let you Dark Elves go. We should have driven you all away long ago, otherwise there will be no today. It happened that you brought the Dark Elves to attack Asgard. After saying that, Thor spun Mjolnir in his hand and rushed towards Malekith. Obviously, Thor wanted to kill the king of the Dark Elves quickly. Pity. His speed was broken, but it was not faster than Hela. Hela would not let him have his wish. Halfway through, Hela stopped him with two swords waving, and said mockingly. Ha ha, little Thor, is your temper still as bad as before? Come. Let my sister give you a try and see your fighting ability after so many years. Have you improved much? After saying that, he easily withstood Thor's hammer and said to Malekith behind him. Leave him to me, you do what you have to do. Malekith glared at Thor with some fear, gritted his teeth and chose to listen to Hela's words. He led a large group of Dark Elves around the two of them, rushed across the Rainbow Bridge towards Asgard's castle. Seeing the large group of Dark Elves rushing past, Thor suddenly became anxious and wanted to stop them immediately. But it's a pity. He is no match for Hela, and he has no time left to protect himself, but he wants to defeat Hela, but it's not easy. I don't have the ability to escape. I could only watch helplessly as the dark elves swarmed across the rainbow bridge, rushed to the castle, and started a battle with the guarding soldiers. Perhaps the peace has lasted for so long that the soldiers of Asgard have even forgotten how to fight the enemy, and are no longer as good as the dark elves who are always fighting. As soon as they came into contact with the dark elf army, they were beaten and many people were killed. If it weren't for the protection of the tall city walls, more Asgardians would have died. Seeing the Asgardians dying one after another, Odin's heart continued to sink. He saw that only those Asgard soldiers who often went out to fight with Thor could fight the Dark Elves. But compared to the endless number of Dark Elves, their numbers were too few and they could not play a decisive role. And those soldiers who stayed in Asgard, although they were all brave, their combat experience was obviously insufficient. They were no match for the Dark Elves. It was only a matter of time before the castle was breached. He couldn't help but secretly blame himself. Was he wrong? Was it wrong to let the people of Asgard live in peace? Looking at Thor again, seeing the battle between Thor and Hela, Odin couldn't help but get nervous. Because, although Thor was extremely brave, he couldn't beat Hela, and was even played by Hela like a child. To be honest, Odin couldn't tell his feelings about this powerful daughter. It is undeniable that Hela is excellent, so excellent that no one in the entire 9 realms can match her. But such an excellent person has ambition and cruelty that makes all creatures in the 9 realms feel uneasy. This is why Odin had to exile Hela. He could understand that Hela hated him, and even that Hela wanted to kill him. But what Hela should never do was to drag the entire Asgard and even the 9 realms into the war. At this moment, he no longer regretted exiling Hela. Even if Hela's life and soul had not been combined with Asgard, he would have killed Hela without mercy. Unfortunately, in order to save Asgard, Odin had to spare Hela's life, but he still had to face Hela's revenge in the end. Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, De Chuanchi. Chapter 463. Thinking of this, Odin glanced at Thor, who was defeated by Hela. Odin shook his head slightly in disappointment. A firm look flashed in Odin's one eye, and he did not care about training Thor. He hurriedly sent a message to Heimdall, who was hiding in the dark. Heimdall, bring that earthling up. Yes, my majesty the God King. Heimdall's serious voice came from his mind. Odin slowly closed his one eye, leaned on the throne and whispered softly. Young earthling, yeah. As I write this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. I leave all this to you, don't let me down. At the same time, Yejuju, who was cooperating with Tony and Banner to study the Tizot in the underground laboratory, suddenly heard a man's voice in his mind. Sorry to bother you, earthling. I am Heimdall of Asgard. Hela and the Dark Elves are invading Asgard, and His Majesty the God King's divine power cannot be restored for the time being. According to the instructions of His Majesty the God King, I hope you can come and help us resist the invasion of Dark Elves and Hela and defeat them. Are you willing to prevent the entire 9 realms from falling into endless war and darkness? As soon as he finished speaking, Yejuju received a system prompt. The host triggers the world's main quest, Hela's Revenge. Help Asgard repel the Dark Elves' army and stop Hela's ambition to dominate the 9 realms. You will be rewarded with 100,000 experience points and a special reward. When I heard the mission issued by the system, I didn't have time to think about why Hela and the Dark Elves got together. Why is Hela back before Odin is dead? If you have a mission, of course you have to take it. What's more, there is also a special reward opportunity that Yejuju is jealous of. There was nothing to hesitate. Yejuju immediately took over the task and answered Heimdall in his mind. Okay, then please, Please take me to Asgard immediately. After saying that, Yejuju ignored Tony and Banner, withdrew the sky shuttle from before their eyes, covered his whole body with the armor, and left a message to them. Sorry, you two. There was a battle in Asgard, and God King Odin wanted me to help them defeat the powerful enemy, so I took the Sky Escape shuttle away first. As soon as the sound fell, Yejuju had already stepped on the Sky Escape shuttle, and flew out of the underground laboratory with a whoosh, leaving only Tony and Banner who had not had time to recover. After leaving Stark Tower and stopping on the roof of Stark Tower, Yejuju said to Heimdall in his mind. I'm ready, Heimdall, let's start. As soon as the sound fell, a colorful light beam shone straight down from the sky above his head, instantly shrouding Yejuju in it. Then the light beam disappeared from the earth with Yejuju's whoosh sound. The dazzling light in front of his eyes disappeared, and before Yejuju could take any action, he heard the shouts of many people fighting in his ears, although he couldn't understand them. There was no time to think too much, and he understood that this was the Dark Elves attacking Asgard. Yejuju immediately released all his mechanical creatures from the space and ordered them to kill the Dark Elves. In an instant, the two-headed mechanical dragon led 6 liquid robots and pounced on the Dark Elves from the air. 3 giant mechanical dogs led more than a dozen mechanical dogs, and Zui Feng and General killed the Dark Elves from the ground. The appearance of these mechanical creatures immediately made the Asgardians, who were retreating steadily, become excited as if they had been given blood. They all cheered and howled, and started fighting with the Dark Elves. Yejuju was not idle either. These were just ordinary Dark Elves in front of him, and there was no need for him to use the power of the domain and the form of the mountain cone. He stepped on the sky shuttle and flew towards the castle, controlling 23 blades to float around him with his mind, killing the Dark Elves who dared to block the way. The result was both unexpected and expected by Yejuju. These Dark Elves are extraordinary beings, but in front of the blade of Dunshinchuo, none of them can block it. It was expected because Yejuju knew that the power system of swallowing starry sky was essentially higher than the Marvel world. Except for the few characters on the ceiling, Yejuju didn't take it seriously. Naturally, these Dark Elves are no exception. What was unexpected was that these Dark Elves were so good. They were not even as good as the high-level beast soldiers who devoured the starry sky world. They were so talented. It feels like killing a chicken with a bullseye, overkill. There was no time to think about how fast Yejuju flew on the sky shuttle, but in the blink of an eye he arrived at the battlefield between Thor and Hela. As soon as we came in, we saw that Hela was just like in the original play, jokingly pinching Thor and hammering him with all his strength, laughing at Thor's shocked face, and pinched Mjolnir into fragments. And the god of thunder is holding the handle of the hammer, with a look of disbelief and confusion on his face. When Thor was stunned, Hela kicked him out unceremoniously and hit Thor's chest hard. There was a muffled sound of bang, Thor grunted, and his body was kicked high into the air, flying right in the direction of Yejuju. Hela, on the other hand, held both swords and walked towards the castle with excitement on her face. Seeing Hela was leaving, Yejuju quit. You know, Hela is the key to the mission. She must not be allowed to enter Asgard and release her undead minions, otherwise Yejuju would have to spend a lot of effort to solve these troubles. Thinking of this, Yejuju activated the Dungeon shuttle with a whoosh sound. He passed the oncoming Thor. He passed Hela 10 meters away and stopped her. Only then did Thor hit the rainbow bridge heavily, making a hole in the hard bridge deck. Yejuju's sudden appearance, and after seeing Yejuju's strange armor, Hela was really startled, and then became angry, saying in her heart, "This is a daredevil who came out of nowhere. He wants to stop him. Isn't this looking for death?" Thinking of this, Hela didn't talk nonsense. She wasn't even interested in asking Yejuju's name, and just slashed him with his sword. Yejuju quickly raised his hands, and the armor in his hands quickly transformed into 2 swords. Dang Glang Grang took the 2 swords struck by Hela one after another. The reason why there were two swords was naturally that after Hela's first sword was blocked by Yejuju, he didn't even have time to retract the previous sword, so he immediately made up for it with the second sword. Unfortunately, the second sword, which was far more powerful than the first sword, was easily caught and pulled down by Yejuju. Huh, who are you? You are not from Asgard. You don't have divine blood in your body, so who are you? Why did you stop me? After a fight, Hela noticed something unusual about Yejuju. The reason why he asked this was naturally because Hela felt a little guilty. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, Dachuan-chi. Chapter 464. She felt guilty, but she was really afraid that Yejuju was a backup left by Odin to deal with her. The reason was simple. In the previous fight, the power from Yejuju's sword really surprised Hela. She knew how strong her power was. Not to mention other places, as long as she stood on the land of Asgard, she could use the power of the entire Asgard. How strong is the power of a planet? She could easily crush Thor's Mjolnir, which was conceivable. But even so, she found that the person in front of her could easily take her two swords. It can be imagined that Yejuju must not be an ordinary person. Yejuju was too lazy to talk nonsense with her. Don't look at her as Thor's sister, she is Hela, the god of death. In Yejuju's view, she is just a cannon fodder, not as important as Thanos's black obsidian V. However, Yejuju did not dare to underestimate Hela. In the previous fight, although he did not use his full strength, he also felt the power of Hela. And if he wanted to kill Hela, he naturally could not hold back. Thinking of this, Yejuju immediately activated the power of the ice domain, covering both of them in the domain. Hela was angry that Yejuju did not answer her question, and saw a large amount of white cold air suddenly gushing out of Yejuju's body, and it looked very much like the ice power of the artifact, the ice box. Since it is the power of ice, Hela is not afraid. It's not that the ice box is really that bad, Hela is not afraid of it. In fact, it's because she is standing on the land of Asgard. As long as the power does not reach the destruction of Asgard, she will not be afraid. It is also because she is not afraid that she is so easily covered by Yejuju's domain power. After being covered by the domain power, Hela realized that something was wrong, but when she wanted to leave Yejuju's domain power, it was not too late. Because Yejuju's domain power came from the ice box, but it surpassed the previous ice power. Not to mention that it can freeze Hela in an instant. God, right? But slowing her down and weakening her by the power of the domain is possible. In addition, Yejuju's domain power has a hidden feature, which is: the longer you stay in it, the more obvious the freezing deceleration effect and weakening of strength will be. Even as long as the time is long enough, if Yejuju can maintain the operation of the domain power, even the universe-level strongmen in the swallowed starry sky can be frozen into ice sculptures in the end. Of course, this is just a theoretical statement. Let alone the universe-level strongmen, how powerful are they? The premise is that Yejuju can avoid being killed by them before freezing these strongmen. But Hela is different. Don't look at her as a god, or the god of death. But she is far worse than those universe-level strongmen, even the star-level strongmen. Back then, the star-level golden-horned behemoths would be temporarily slowed down by Yejuju's domain power, let alone her. In the field, Yejuju's 23 blades, mixed in the icicles, launched a blanket attack on Hela from all directions. Sharp ice cones kept rising from the ground and stabbed Hela's legs and soles. This time, Hela was in a mess. She had to guard against the icicles on the ground, and the icicles and blades in the sky. This made Hela, who was powerful but far inferior to Yejuju in fighting skills, very difficult to dodge. It was not that Hela did not want to crush Yejiju's sky shuttle blades like she crushed Mjolnir. Those icicles were fine, they could not penetrate her body at all, and could only leave a little frost mark on her body. But these blades were different. Each blade had great destructive power and impact, and could penetrate her body. The huge power could also make Hela feel pain. She had tried it, even before the first blade got close to her. Not to mention that the blade was so fast and flexible under Yejiju's mental control that it was not so easy to catch. Even after she was stabbed, leaving a deep cut on her body, she grabbed a blade that had no time to fly back and squeezed it hard. Hela was completely Spartan. There was no other reason. She didn't know what the blade was made of. Even with all her strength, Hela couldn't crush a small blade that was only 3 fingers wide. She couldn't even leave a fingerprint on the blade. That's not all. She couldn't even forcibly keep these blades. No matter how tightly she grabbed the blades, they would fly back into the air under an inexplicable magical force and continue to attack her. This made Hela doubt her life a little. Was she imprisoned for too long, or was she just ignorant? Could it be that after so many years of not appearing in the 9 realms, someone so powerful has appeared in the 9 realms? His strength is much stronger than Thor, and even his weapons. Are they more magical than Mjolnir? Hela thought doubtfully while dodging Yejiju's continuous attacks. Actually, Hela was overthinking. Although Yejiju's mental power is strong, it is not strong enough to take back the blade of the skydrifting shuttle from Hela with mental power. All this is due to the magic of the skydrifting shuttle and the skill of controlling the skydrifting shuttle, the effect of skydrifting. As long as the body of the skydrifting shuttle is still there, Yejiju can use the skydrifting secret method to control the skydrifting shuttle. No matter who is in the hands, it is the same. This is the magic of the skydrifting shuttle and the strangeness of the secret method skydrifting. Of course, this does not mean that as long as there is the skydrifting shuttle and the skydrifting secret method, Yejiju will be invincible. On the contrary, it is very simple to deal with the skydrifting shuttle, that is, to kill Yejiju. At this time, Yejiju can't do anything to Hela. Although Hela was restrained by the power of her own domain, she could not take down Hela immediately, let alone kill Hela. Anyway, Yejiju saw that the wounds pierced by the blades of the sky shuttle would heal in a very short time, and not even a scar would be left. If it weren't for the countless holes left on the tights, Yejiju would even suspect that the blades that pierced Hela's body were just his illusions. At this moment, as if knowing Yejiju's depression, Yejiju heard Odin's voice in his mind. "My dear, it's only been a few months since we last met, and I didn't expect your strength to be so strong. It's really stronger than the previous generation. In fact, you don't have to doubt it. Hela's body is indeed very special. For some reason, she has been bound to the entire Asgard since she grew into the god of death." Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, Dachuan-Chi. Chapter 465. At this point, Odin paused and continued. "As long as she is on the land of Asgard, no matter how serious the injury is, she will heal instantly. It can be said that in Asgard, Hela cannot be killed. Even if Hela is killed in other places, Asgard will also be devastated. So, the only way is control her, make her unable to move, and never escape." After listening to Odin's words, Yejiju couldn't help but curl his lips and thought. Do you think I don't know? I know it from watching the movie, but if you want to control Hela, you have to beat her so that she can't take care of herself. Want to control her? Tisk. How can it be that simple? Thinking of this, Yejiju suddenly had a flash of inspiration in his mind. Thinking of his Sky Escape shuttle and a guess he had seen before. Let's not talk about the Sky Escape shuttle. The material is not comparable to this world. Even if Hela is powerful, she can't destroy it. and Yejuju can just use the advantage of the sky shuttle that can change its shape as she wishes to trap her. I believe that with the hardness of the sky shuttle, Hela will never be able to break the cage formed by the sky shuttle. And that guess? Of course, it is the comments of the online gamers I saw on the internet in my previous life, about deep things like souls. Since Hela's body and Asgard are decaying together, what about the soul? Does destroying her soul mean that she is dead in disguise? And if the soul dies and the body is still there, does Asgard not need to be destroyed? Of course, will it work? All this needs to be verified. But whether it succeeds or not, Yejuju will naturally give it a try. What if? What if Hela is destroyed like this? However, Hela is a god, and a god with rich combat experience who helped Odin conquer the 9 realms. It is not so easy to trap Hela with the Sky Escape shuttle. It requires a suitable opportunity. Of course, no one will give him this opportunity. He needs to create it himself. Thinking of this, Yejuju increased the output of the domain power and released his mental power to capture Hela's habitual movements of dodging every time, and find out the rules to control Hela unexpectedly. Diamond Suit. Fortunately, although Hela's combat experience is extremely rich, it cannot be compared with Yejuju's advanced combat skills. Yejuju quickly captured the rules of Hela's dodging. The next second, Yejuju took advantage of Hela's dodging of the ice cones and blades in the air again and saw her landing point. He controlled the power of ice to gather on his hands and did not release it. In order to freeze Hela temporarily, Yejuju did not hesitate to take back the domain power that consumed a lot and maintain the fullness of the ice power in his hands. The armor's thrusters were outputting frantically, and with a hum, Yejuju appeared beside Hela. Hela was not a pushover either. She noticed that the deceleration effect on her body suddenly disappeared, and the sound of wind rang out beside her. Without hesitation, she swung her swords with 2 swords to cut Yejuju in half. Unfortunately, her 2 swords both hit the air. It can be said that Yejuju had seen through her a long time ago. How could she let her hit her? Just a slight sideways movement, he dodged her 2 swords. Then, Yejuju slapped out with both hands, and 2 extremely domineering ice forces swarmed out and hit Hela's body. Hela's body suddenly stiffened, and layers of thin ice quickly formed on her body. The thin ice accumulated very quickly, and in less than a blink of an eye, Hela's body was completely frozen, making Hela temporarily unable to move. This was not enough. Yejuju activated the power of the domain again, further increasing the freezing effect to freeze Hela. Then, with a thought, he retracted all the blades onto the sky shuttle, controlled the sky shuttle to disperse, and quickly formed a thin cylindrical cage composed of 365 blades, which immediately covered the frozen Hela. Seeing Hela trapped, Yejuju exhaled, retracted the power of the domain, and after looking at the battlefield around him, Yejuju flew the sky shuttle and Hela, who was wrapped and unable to move, towards the castle. It's not that Yejuju didn't want to solve Hela as soon as possible, but it was not the right time. You know, although Yejuju has many means, he can't really destroy a person's soul. He is not Ancient One, who has such a thorough understanding of the soul. But don't forget that there is still something in the Marvel world that can devour the soul of any creature. That's right. It is the Soul Gem, the most mysterious and evil of the 6 Infinity Gems. As long as Hela is brought there, Yejuju has plenty of ways to use the power of the Soul Gem to destroy Hela's soul. Seeing Yejuju trap his daughter so easily, Odin opened his mouth in shock. Even though he had expected that Yejuju had a way to stop Hela, he didn't expect it to be so simple. After seeing Yejuju take the weapon that could change at will to trap Hela, fly to the front of the castle, and join the battle to slaughter the Dark Elves? Exhaling a breath and easing his tense spirit, Odin looked at Thor, who was still kneeling on the ground, holding the broken Mjolnir in his hands. Obviously, his son was deeply shocked and depressed, and even ignored Asgard's comfort. Odin was immediately angry at Thor. But he still hoped that Thor could cheer up quickly. After all, the safety of Asgard and the entire Nine Realms must be handed over to him after his death. Fortunately, someone helped him wake up Thor. It was a group of dozens of dark elves. Seeing Thor kneeling on the ground in a daze, without Mjolnir in his hand, immediately wanted to go forward and kill Thor, so that he could show his face in front of Malekith and get promoted by Malekith. So, the group of dark elves looked at each other, and howled as they rushed towards Thor, who was kneeling on the ground. Perhaps the dark elves' shouts were too loud and woke Thor up. When the group of dark elves rushed to Thor, Thor rolled on the ground in grief and anger, kicked down the dark elf who was rushing in front, stood up from the ground, clenched his fists and started fighting with the group of dark elves. Seeing Thor fighting again, Odin breathed a sigh of relief and looked at the direction where Yejuju was fighting. Across the heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, Dachuanchi. Chapter 466. But it surprised Odin, because although Yejuju no longer had that magical weapon, but there are two double swords in his hands that are not inferior to the power of his artifact, the Eternal Spear. Among the Dark Elves, the densely packed Dark Elves were slashed and killed as if they were in a deserted land. Likewise, under Yejuju's double swords, no Dark Elf could block his sword. Even the leading elites among the Dark Elves would still be killed instantly by Yejuju. Behind him, the two mechanical creatures he had seen last time came over with a smaller robot that was more than 3 trees tall, and a robot that was as tall as more than 3 meters tall. He and Yejuju formed an arrow-like attack formation and penetrated into the depths of the Dark Elves. And what made Odin moved and shocked again was the strength of those mechanical creatures has obviously increased a lot, and they no longer even belong to the powerful gods such as Thor. That's right. Odin was not mistaken. Yejuju's earlier mechanical creatures were not really very powerful, not to mention compared to a righteous god like Thor, even several of Thor's friends. But now they are different. After being systematically transformed in the devouring starry sky world, each one has the strength of a god of war after being combined. Notice. This god of war is the same as the so-called god in the Marvel world. Such strength naturally shocked Odin. With the addition of Yejuju and the mechanical pets, the battle in front of the castle immediately improved. In many dangerous places, Yejuju and his mechanical pets killed the dark elves surrounding them, letting the soldiers guarding them breathe a sigh of relief. Malekith, who was directing the dark elves to attack the city, naturally noticed Yejuju. Like Hela, he could tell at a glance that Yejuju was not a god, but a mortal, and he felt extremely angry. But after seeing that Yejuju was indeed very strong, Malekith wisely did not lead his men forward to kill Yejuju, who sabotaged his siege. Instead, he asked his personal guards to stop Yejuju and attack him. Kill him. Soon, Malekith's personal guards separated into hundreds of people and surrounded Yejuju. While Yejuju was killing people, he suddenly noticed something was wrong with the atmosphere around him. When he looked up, he found that he had been surrounded by a group of hundreds of well-equipped dark elves. Each of these dark elves wears armor with black lining and golden metal on the arms and chest. They all held a gun-like weapon that looked full of technology in their hands, and they wore golden devil masks on their faces to cover their pale faces. After surrounding Yejuju, these dark elves took up their guns and started shooting at Yejuju. Facing these attacks, Yejuju didn't panic at all, and didn't even bother to dodge. You must know that his armor is fused with the Black God armor. Its defensive power can withstand a full blow from Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet that has collected all the Infinity Stones, and there is no problem at all. He really didn't care about the weapons in the hands of the Dark Elves. As for his mechanical pets, he is even less worried. Each of them has the strength of a god of war, and coupled with the defensive power of the modified S-class armor, they are naturally not afraid of being attacked by the Dark Elves. Sure enough, after the beam bullets fired by these weapons hit Yejuju and the mechanical pets, they only made a pop sound and then nothing happened. Yejuju was not polite. It was said that it was disrespectful to come back without reciprocating. After the order of kill them all was given, Yejuju and his mechanical pets all started to move. They divided into 4 directions and attacked the dark elves surrounding them. Just when Yejuju and the mechanical pets were killing these dark elves, some of the dark elves put down their grabs, took out a black ball from their waists, and swarmed towards Yejuju and the mechanical pets. Was thrown over. Seeing these spheres, Yejuju immediately remembered that even though they were round and round, they were one of the few things in Marvel that could destroy gods. This thing is none other than the Dark Elves' exclusive weapon, the Black Hole Bomb. This bomb can tear apart space, form a miniature black hole, and swallow all life around it. After discovering that it was this thing, he didn't hesitate at all. He quickly retreated and gave orders to the mechanical pets through the Red Queen. Avoid these round bombs and be sure not to be hit by them, otherwise Yejuju cannot guarantee that he and his mechanical pets can survive in the black hole. Even though Yejuju's strength had already reached the peak of the God of War, and he was protected by the falcon armor fused with the black god armor, he still didn't dare to gamble that he could survive in the black hole. Fortunately, Yejuju's order was issued in time, and several mechanical pets and mounts with intelligence not inferior to humans all retreated immediately. But the rest of the mechanical creatures are not so lucky. The main reason is that they are not Yejuju's pets and do not have such a high IQ. Even under the control of the Red Queen, under such a dense black hole bomb, mistakes would inevitably occur. 2 mechanical dogs and a liquid robot were hit by black hole bombs and swallowed by the micro black holes formed by tearing apart space. Red Queen also told Yejuju immediately that the mechanical dogs and liquid robots swallowed by the black hole lost contact with it after entering the black hole. It seems that even if these mechanical creatures were not destroyed by the black hole immediately, Yejuju would not think of finding them back. After a half-second of regret, Yejuju glared at the dark elves surrounding him, and ordered the mechanical pets and Red Queen. Since they have started, don't be polite, use long-range weapons to blast them all. After the voice fell, Yejuju took the lead. With a thought, the small laser cannon on the armor stretched out from the shoulder, and the barrel locked the dark elves in front of it while moving, and began to accumulate energy to prepare for firing. Unlike the charging weapons of the dark elves, the small laser cannon is powerful even if it is small. The charging sound of buzzing rang rapidly for 3 seconds, and a dazzling white beam of light shot out. Before anyone could react, it hit a dark elf. The next second, within 3 meters of him, 4 dark elves were vaporized into ashes by the laser without even a scream, leaving a 3-meter-wide empty space. Then, the 2-headed mechanical dragon was in the air, spraying flames and lasers, ruthlessly killing the dark elves on the ground. On the ground, the mechanical 3-headed giant dog and Zufeng also used laser weapons to shoot the dark elves in front of them. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, Chuanchi. Chapter 467. Only the general, whose weapons were far behind those of the other mechanical pets, was still the same as the Dark Elves, using only thermal weapons and ordinary energy weapons. Even so, the general's thermal weapons and energy weapons could still kill these Dark Elves. In just a blink of an eye, no less than 30 Dark Elves were killed, and Malekith, who was watching the battle from a distance, couldn't help but frown. He was not worried about the guards who were killed, because there were too many Dark Elves. As long as he wanted, he could always select more people from tens of thousands of Dark Elves to supplement his guards. The reason for his frown was that the energy weapons used by Yejuju and those mechanical creatures were too powerful. He couldn't help but worry that the plan to attack Asgard and seize the ether particles would be destroyed by this man and dragon. The key was the black hole bomb that he had researched with great effort, and means it actually had no effect on this man and this dragon, which made Malekith helpless. While Malekith was thinking about it, in just a few minutes, Yejuju had cooperated with several mechanical pets to kill all the 100 guards. This fighting power not only won the warm cheers of all the Asgardians, but also the surrounding dark elves were scared and retreated, leaving a large space for Yejuju. Seeing this scene, Malekith couldn't help but retreat. Because, with this person here, if Odin comes out, he really has no chance of winning the battle today. But thinking that this is the only chance to conquer Asgard, if he misses today, when Odin recovers, he will have no hope of getting the ether particles. Thinking of this, Malekith gritted his teeth secretly and encouraged his dark elves. Kill him for me. Only by breaking into Odin's castle can we get the ether particles and turn the entire universe into a dark world. For the survival and rise of our dark elves, charge. Go up and use the black hole bomb to drown this human. No one can stop the rise of our dark elves, charge. It must be said that Malekith's encouragement is still very effective. After hearing his shouting, the dark elves suddenly became excited, and there was no fear in their eyes. They all shouted and charged at Yejuju and the mechanical pets. This time, Yejuju dared not be careless. Looking at the dark elves rushing up and the black hole bombs in their hands, Yejuju just thought about the scene covered by small black holes all over the sky, and couldn't help shuddering. He immediately ordered the mechanical pets to disperse, and the mechanical two-headed dragon flew into the air with him, and killed the dark elves rushing up from a high position. There was no way. He was still able to dodge dozens of black hole bombs, but hundreds and thousands. Yejuju could not guarantee that he would not be hit by one. Seeing this, some people might say, in the world of devouring stars, Yejuju could dodge the attacks of monsters with perfect body skills when facing the dense monster attacks. Why couldn't he dodge the black hole bombs? It's very simple. It's because it's a black hole bomb that Yejuju is not sure he can dodge it. You know, every black hole bomb explodes and tears the space unpredictably. It may be above or in the left, middle, right, and lower directions. Facing hundreds and thousands of black holes, even someone as strong as Yejuju dared not shuttle through the gaps of the black holes. He could only fly into the air to kill these dark elves. There is no way. Who told Yejuju to fly? The Dark Elves' space battleships were fighting against Asgard's air defense forces, so they naturally couldn't come to surround and kill Yejuju. One man and one dragon flew into the air and ruthlessly slaughtered the Dark Elves on the ground. The Dark Elves had no way to deal with this. Shooting from the ground into the air, not to mention whether the agile and fast Yejuju and the mechanical two-headed dragon could be shot. Even if they occasionally hit, they couldn't shoot through the outer armor on the one man and the dragon. And throwing black hole grenades from the ground into the sky is even more nonsense. In the 9 realms, the Dark Elves are actually a weak race, and their strength is only twice that of humans. How could they throw a small black hole bomb weighing 2 kilograms into the air more than 100 meters and accurately hit a man and a dragon? Even if some of the special and powerful Dark Elves can throw bombs more than 100 meters high. But because of their small number and slow speed, they were easily dodged by Yejuju and the two-headed mechanical dragon. The result was that Yejuju and the two-headed mechanical dragon cooperated, killing many Dark Elves with a flame and a laser beam. Looking at the groups of Dark Elves being killed by humans and mechanical creatures in the sky, Malekith's face, half pale and half blue due to the curse, turned black like the bottom of a pot. At this time, he was looking forward to it, looking forward to Hela coming to the battlefield as soon as possible to kill Yejuju, the annoying human. Too many Dark Elves died, so many that he was a little anxious. He didn't know that Hela had been captured alive by Yejuju and was locked in a metal can that was always suspended beside Yejuju. If he knew that Hela was captured alive, he might not have held out hope for conquering Asgard. In fact, this is a common sense mistake. Malekith knew that although Hela was the god of death and controlled the army of the undead, The most feared thing about her was that she was tied to Asgard. If she died, Asgard would be destroyed. And if Asgard was destroyed, Hela would not be able to survive. Hela hadn't appeared for so long, and Asgard was fine, so Malekith thought that Hela was entangled by Thor and couldn't get away for the time being. He was still looking forward to Hela coming to support him after killing Thor. Thinking of Hela's strength, Malekith glared at Yejuju, who was still blasting his dark elves with laser beams in the air, and gritted his teeth and said, "You are so arrogant. When Hela comes, it will be your death." Unfortunately, after waiting for half an hour, Hela did not come to support, and the dark elves who surrounded Yejuju began to retreat again. There was no way, they were scared by Yejuju and the mechanical two-headed dragon. How could they bully people like this? One man and one dragon flew in the air, slaughtering them mercilessly, but they could not hurt one man and one dragon even a little bit. One-sided. How can this battle be fought? Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, Dachuanchi. Chapter 468. Seeing that the Dark Elves were defeated by one man and one dragon, the Asgardians all cheered, and their morale suddenly rose. Some people even got so excited that if the officer leading the team had not stopped them, they would have jumped off the city wall to chase down the defeated Dark Elves. Malekith glared at Yejuju with fierce eyes, wishing to kill Yejuju, the person who sabotaged his capture of Asgard, with his eyes. Unfortunately, he didn't have the courage to rush forward and fight Yejuju. It has to be said that Malekith cherishes his life, even though he is very strong and has many abilities, such as possess intelligence, endurance, speed, agility, strength, and reflexes beyond ordinary people. The ability to skillfully use magic to achieve various effects. The specific effects are teleportation, energy projection and transfer, body extension into mist, flight, and other abilities. But he just didn't want to go into battle himself, even though he was once an excellent warrior. I don't know when this mentality started. It seems that it started when he became the Dark Elf King. As others often say, the higher the position, the more afraid of death. However, even though he was timid, it could be considered as indirectly saving his life. Because as long as he dares to rush up to fight Yejuju, Yejuju will definitely let him know that all his abilities will be in vain under the influence of the power of the domain. Yejuju will definitely kill him without mercy. Even if the Dark Elves go berserk because of this, Yejuju will not be afraid at all. Big deal. Just kill all the Dark Elves here. Yejuju would not be like Odin and think so much about the peace of the Nine Realms. Of course, whether the Dark Elves have the courage to dare to cause trouble for Yejuju after the king's death in battle is another matter. At this moment, a man wearing a red cloak came from behind the Dark Elf. While howling and cursing, he used his fists and feet to knock away all the Dark Elves who were blocking him. Surrounded by Dark Elves, Malekith heard the movement behind him and turned his head to look back, but he couldn't see clearly who it was. But Yejuju, who was in the air, could see clearly that it wasn't Thor, the god of thunder, or someone else. At this time, Thor was obviously on the verge of going berserk. Even though he didn't have Thor's hammer Mjolnir in his hand, the strength in his hands and feet was not light. Anyway, none of the Dark Elves standing in front of him was his opponent. As he walked, he punched the Dark Elf hard and violently, his eyes full of blue electricity flashing, and wisps of electric sparks coming out of his body from time to time, which smelled like that. Finally, Thor reached not far from Malekith. After seeing clearly that the person coming was the god of thunder, Malekith's expression behind the mask suddenly changed, and he blurted out, "Why are you? Where is Hela? Where is Hela, the god of death?" Then, Malekith shouted in horror as if he had thought of something. No. Could it be that Hela lied to me? Does she want to lure me to Asgard so you can kill me? Shit. Damn it, we were fooled. After speaking, Malekith shouted loudly to his Dark Elves without thinking. My people, we have been deceived. He was deceived by that female cousin of Hela. Everyone, please retreat and leave Asgard quick, quick, quick. After shouting, Malekith took his remaining guards, leaving the Dark Elves who were still fighting, and rushed towards the Rainbow Bridge. I no longer want to attack Asgard, kill God King Odin, massacre Asgard, and obtain ether particles. In his opinion, if it is really what he thinks. Hela deceived him. He was really no match for Hela, Thor, and Odin. No. To be precise, let alone Odin, he couldn't even defeat Hela. Only Thor he is still sure to deal with it. After all, even if he can't be beaten, his magic can make him atomize and escape from here. I have to say that Malekith is still as self-righteous as in the play. He didn't even think about it. If Hela had tricked him into attacking Asgard, how could he have destroyed Asgard's external defense shield in the first place? How could he fight with Thor in the first place and crush Thor's Mjolnir? Say it again. Hela didn't invite him to attack Asgard, but they met on the way. Could it be? Is Odin really that awesome? With a distance of tens of thousands of light years, you know that he brought the Dark Elves to attack Asgard? He also released Hela in advance, influenced Hela, and allowed the arrogant Hela to deceive him. Does he have such a big face? Seeing the Dark Elves retreating toward the Rainbow Bridge in a chaotic manner, Asgard's soldiers gave up. Where is this place? It's the Asgard of the God King. Are the Dark Elves able to come and leave whenever they want? As a result, all the Asgard soldiers rushed out of the castle with shouts and chased the escaped Dark Elves. Yejuju also rushed forward at this time. He wanted to keep Malekith to prevent him from being used by Thanos in the future and becoming an accomplice in attacking the Earth. After all, no matter what, the Earth is his home. Why not get rid of one of Thanos' helpers in advance? Unfortunately, Yejuju really underestimated Malekith's ability and shamelessness. Just when he caught up with Malekith, the escaping Dark Elves discovered him and shouted in panic. Malekith, who was in a hurry to retreat, heard the shouting and turned around to see Yejuju chasing him at high speed from the air. He panicked and hurriedly ordered his guards to greet Yejuju with black hole bombs. These guards are worthy of being guards. Even when they were in a hurry to escape, they still reacted quickly, almost at the same time. All the guards stopped running, turned around and took out the black hole bombs. And threw them at Yejuju and the two-headed mechanical dragon in the air. Yejuju, who was about to catch up with Malekith, saw countless black spots suddenly flying towards him in the air. He hurriedly stopped in the air and then flew back quickly. Almost at the same time he flew back, dull explosions sounded in the sky. One after another, micro black holes appeared in the air, and the sizzling sound of tearing the space made people's scalps numb. And such a scene is much more shocking than fireworks. One after another, black holes appeared in overlapping layers, staying in the air for only a short second, and then suddenly shrank back, swallowing the surrounding air, making a hissing sound like tearing cloth. Yejuju didn't dare to rush forward and chase Malekith through the encirclement of black holes. Besides, even if he wanted to chase, he couldn't catch up at this time. Because Malekith had already cast his magic and turned into a cloud of smoke. He had already floated to the Rainbow Bridge and boarded a spaceship and flew away. It wasn't that Yejuju couldn't catch up with him. After all, with his armor and the flying speed of the Sky Shuttle, he could still catch up with the battleship. But his Sky Shuttle was still holding Hela, so it was impossible for him to release Hela just to hunt down Malekith. You know, once Hela was found, it was not certain whether he could capture her alive. Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, Dachuan. Chapter 469. Because Malekith had already used his magic and turned into a cloud of smoke, which had already drifted to the Rainbow Bridge, boarded a space battleship and flew away. It's not that Yejuju can't catch up with him. After all, with his battle armor and the flight speed of the dungeon shuttle, he can still catch up with the battleship. But, his sky escape shuttle is still imprisoning Hela at this time. It is impossible to release Hela just to hunt down Malekith. You know, once you get away from Hela, it's not sure whether you can capture her alive. As I write this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. Forget it, just leave. Yejuju thought to himself, turned around and stopped taking action, just watching the Asgard soldiers and mechanical pets, massacring the dark elves who had not had time to escape. More than half an hour passed. Except for the dark elves who had the chance to escape, there was not a single living dark elf present. They were all dead. Not to mention, although many of these Asgard soldiers have never participated in a battle since they were born, they have a very good habit of finishing wounds on the battlefield. At least when cleaning the battlefield, not a single Asgard soldier was pretended to be dead dark elf sneak attack. Seeing that the battle was over, Yejuju took back the mechanical pets and glanced at Thor, who looked sad. Just when Yejuju was about to step forward and joke a few words, he heard Odin's old voice in his mind. "Young man, please come to my palace. I have something to tell you." Hearing this, Yejuju touched his chin, his mind spinning rapidly. Since I had helped Asgard and Odin so much this time, I naturally wanted to get some benefits from Odin's treasure house. Thinking about the treasures in Odin's treasure house, Yejuju couldn't help but think of another treasure in the treasure house that was also an attribute treasure, the eternal fire. Thinking of the eternal fire, Yejuju almost drooled. No way. The previous Loki stole the ice box from the treasure house, and after Yejuju obtained it, he gave him the power of ice. So, what if I can still get the eternal fire this time? Will Yejuju also have the power of fire? Heaven of ice and fire. Just thinking about it made me feel excited, and Yejuju couldn't wait. Thinking of this, Yejuju no longer delayed, and flew to Odin's palace with the sky shuttle that trapped Hela. Along the way, seeing Yejuju, the human who helped Asgard defeat the Dark Elves and Hela, all the Asgardians bowed to Yejuju, showing their respect. Yejuju was not an arrogant person. When he saw them carrying their luggage to him, he nodded politely. When I arrived at Odin's palace, I saw a weak-looking Odin sitting on the throne. His only remaining eye looked a little cloudy and not as sharp as before. Seeing Yejuju's arrival, Odin raised his hand and motioned Yejuju to sit down and said, "Young man, please sit down." "Thanks." After Yejuju answered politely, he found a seat nearby and sat down, waiting for Odin to continue. Odin stared at Dunshinchuo closely, and suddenly asked meaningfully, "My dear Nian, what are you going to do with Hela?" Hearing this, Yejuju secretly glanced at Odin. After making sure that Odin had no intention of being raped, he shrugged and said, "I want to make sure. You really don't care about your daughter life or death." Hearing this, Odin looked stunned for a moment, then slowly said, "I want to know, if you were in my position, what would you choose?" Shrugging, Yejuju curled his lips, no longer planning to fight with Odin, and said solemnly, "I would like to ask His Majesty the God King, is Hela's body bound to Asgard, or is her soul also bound to Asgard?" When Odin heard this, he couldn't help but lower his head and think about it. He was a mature man, and he could guess what Yejuju wanted to do just from Yejuju's words. Hela's life and death is related to the important matter of whether Thor can sit on the throne after his death. He cannot help but be cautious, and cautious. After going through the possibility of killing Hela several times in his mind, Odin sat up, looked at Yejuju and asked, "I want to know, what exactly do you want to do? You know, Hela is known as the god of death, and the soul is not so easy to be destroyed." He. Hearing this, Yejuju already knew that he had found the right method. As long as Hela's soul could be destroyed, all this would be over. There was no way, he couldn't tolerate this matter. Because he had beaten away the Dark Elves and captured Hela alive, but the system did not give him a prompt to complete the task. Think about it, since the task requirement given by the system is to prevent Hela from dominating the 9 realms. The only way is to destroy Hela's soul. After laughing twice, Yejuju suddenly remembered that although he knew that the soul gem was on Vormir, the person guarding the soul gem was the Red Skull. But Yejuju doesn't know how to get there. This is embarrassing. After thinking about it, Yejuju finally had no choice but to turn to Odin for help. After all, as the Lord of the 9 realms, how could Odin not know where Vormir is? Maybe this old silver coin already knew where the soul gem was. I have to say, this old guy is really insidious. Yejuju didn't believe that Odin didn't have the ability to get all the 6 Infinity Stones. Otherwise, how could the wireless gloves be in Odin's treasure house? I think this old guy is really smart. The 6 gems were probably placed on other planets on Earth after he got them, in order to prevent others from easily getting them and destroying half of the universe. Thinking of this, Yejuju couldn't help but shudder, and realized that no matter how capable a person is, he is not a simple person after living for thousands of years. He also understood that he should never get too close to such people, lest he be tricked by them without knowing it. Thinking of this, Yejuju simply stopped beating around the bush with Odin and said directly, "Your Majesty, you can ask me to help you deal with Hela, but you can't ask me to help you for nothing, right?" Without waiting for Odin to answer, Yejuju continued, "I want the eternal flame, Your Majesty, are you willing to give it up?" Hearing this, Odin stared at Yejuju with his one eye for a long time before speaking. "Okay. As long as you deal with Hela, I will give you the eternal flame. But I also want to warn you." After a pause, Odin said meaningfully, "That is the treasure of the fire giants. Once you take it away, if the fire giants that are attracted by it cause trouble to you, he." Hearing this, Yejuju couldn't help but curl his lips and said disdainfully, "Who are you trying to scare? The fire giants have been almost killed by Thor and his men, and the most powerful fire giant King Surtur has been imprisoned in Asgard by you. Who else will come to trouble me? Unless it would be better if you dared to release Surtur." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, Dachuan. Chapter 470. Say it again. Even if there are still fire giants alive, if they come to me, just kill him. Thinking of this, Yejuju nodded and said, "Deal. I have a way to annihilate Hela's soul." After saying this, he paused, glanced at Odin, and saw that he was really interested in listening, so he continued. "Presumably His Majesty the God King knows that the Soul Stone is on Vormir, right? As long as His Majesty the God King asks someone to take me there, I can use the Soul Gem to annihilate Hela's soul. I don't know. Is my method feasible?" Hearing this, Odin said in his heart, "Sure enough," and then he relaxed his body and slowly leaned on the throne. He looked outside the palace and fell into memories. Yejuju didn't know what he was reminiscing about, but time waited for no one. He was afraid that something would happen if he delayed for too long, so he urged, "His Majesty the God King." Oh. Odin came back to his senses and did not blame Yejuju for interrupting his memory of the past. He raised his hands and slapped him. There were footsteps outside the door, and an Asgard soldier walked in, knelt on the ground and put one hand on his chest and said, "Your Majesty the God King, do you have any instructions? Alaga, take this gentleman to the planet Vormir, and come back together after he's finished." "Yes. His Majesty the God King." After Alaga finished speaking, he stood up and said to Yejuju, "Please come to me, noble warrior." After saying that, he saluted Odin and walked out of the palace. Yejuju didn't talk nonsense, stood up and followed out. Behind. Odin's eyes suddenly became unpredictable, and he looked at Yejuju's back without saying a word for a long time. When Yejuju and the two left the palace, they saw Thor, the god of thunder, walking over with a frustrated look on his face. He looked so lost that Yejuju didn't even see him passing by him. Yejuju had business to do and didn't want to say hello to him. After passing Thor, he thought, "After you deal with Hela, you must come back and trick Thor into visiting the dwarf planet Nidav." Speaking of which, Yejuju was very curious about it. I am also very curious about the dwarves' ability to use the power of planets to forge artifacts. Going to take a look will satisfy my curiosity. The journey to Vormir was neither long nor short. At the speed of the Asgard spacecraft, it took 3 days to reach the destination. The planet in front of me looks very desolate. The entire planet seems to be dead, without a single living creature. Of course, the Red Skull doesn't count. Speaking of which, Red Skull is really unlucky. After being exiled to Vormir by the Space Stone, he had already obtained the Soul Stone. But it's a pity. He was despised by the Soul Stone again and cursed him. Since then, he has become the original guardian of the Soul Stone, and he will only be free when someone takes the Soul Stone. And this stay lasted for almost 100 years. For someone with huge ambitions like him, isn't this torture in disguise? While thinking wildly, Yejuju walked up to the soul altar where the soul gem was. When he reached the top of the mountain, he saw a red skull appearing in front of Yejuju like a ghost. The red skull showed a smile that was uglier than crying and said, "Finally someone found here. Are you here to take the soul gem? Come on, take that damn thing away, I don't want to stay here anymore." Hearing this, Yejuju glanced at the slightly crazy red skull and said in his heart, "Strange. In the movie, isn't the red skull in this state? Why do you look so anxious and crazy when you see him at this time?" He couldn't figure it out, and Yejuju didn't want to continue thinking about it. For now, of course, he had to kill Hela first and then take the soul gem. Thinking that Thanos had gone through so much trouble to get the 5 gems and the Infinity Gauntlet, but the last gem was with him, and he couldn't beat himself. So, how would Thanos feel? Thinking of this, Yejuju couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth and reveal a smile. Fortunately, he was still wearing the falcon armor, with the visor covering his face. Otherwise, it would be a bit embarrassing for him to be seen by the red skull like this. Following the red skull to the soul altar, the red skull floated next to Yejuju, and suddenly became gloating and said, "The soul gem is down here, he, if you want to get it, only those who sacrifice their most beloved ones can get it, haha, have you brought your beloved one here?" Hearing this, Yejuju's face turned dark. Only then did he remember the setting of the Soul Stone in Marvel. This deceptive sacrifice setting made it impossible for Yejuju to obtain the Soul Gem. Because, isn't Hela the person she loves most? With a dark face, Yejuju glared at the red skull who was still laughing strangely, rolled his eyes and said, "Step aside and don't annoy me here." Who is the red skull? He was an absolute ruthless man during World War II. Even more ruthless than the mustache. How could he receive Yejuju's eyes for nothing? He just wanted to get angry at Yejuju, but he saw clearly a very powerful armor. Red Skull wisely chose to be tolerant, reluctantly stepped aside, waiting to see Yejuju's painful look. Seeing Red Skull walk away, Yejuju turned around and looked at the bottom of the high altar. Good guy, it stands to reason. This mountain is not very high, only about 1,000 meters. With Yejuju's eyesight, he couldn't see what it looked like below. I had to sigh in my heart. The 6 gems in the Marvel world are indeed extraordinary things. The place where the soul gem stays is so weird. Thinking about it, Yejuju decided to sacrifice Hela now. As for whether he could get the soul gem, who cares? Thinking of this, Yejuju moved his mind and controlled the sky shuttle in front of him. The sky shuttle flew in front of him, and as his mind moved, it began to change. In just a blink of an eye, the sky shuttle turned into a chain made entirely of blades, tightly binding Hela. Except for her mouth, she could not move anywhere on her body. When Hela saw Yejuju, she immediately stared at Yejuju with red eyes and threatened. "Let me go quickly, you stupid mortal, otherwise when I get out of this trap, I will turn you into my undead, and you will never be able to leave me for the rest of your life, and I will torture you all the time." Before Hela finished threatening herself, Yejuju waved her hand impatiently to interrupt her and said, "Okay, do you really think you are immortal? Do you really think no one can kill you? Today is your death day. Remember, the person who kills you is Yejuju." After saying that, Yejuju moved his mind, and the sky shuttle fell rapidly to the bottom of the mountain with Hela, who looked like she was bragging and coaxing me. Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, Dachuan. Chapter 471. Before Hela finished threatening her, Yejuju impatiently waved her hand to interrupt her. "Enough, do you really think you are immortal? Do you really think no one can kill you? Today is your death date. Remember, the person who kills you is Yejuju." After saying that, Yejuju moved his mind, and the Sky Escape shuttle took Hela, who looked like she was bragging and fooling me, and fell rapidly to the bottom of the mountain. Ah! Hela's terrified scream came from mid-air. She was really scared this time. Falling from a high altitude was nothing to be afraid of for her. Even if she fell from the highest point of the 9 realms to the earth, she would be fine, but it was different here. The more she fell, the more she felt that her soul was about to leave her body. And her soul seemed to be swallowed by a mysterious force. This made Hela feel very scared. She knew that although she was bound to Asgard, it did not mean that her soul was also bound to Asgard. Once her soul died, she would be equivalent to death, but Asgard would not be destroyed. Thinking of the death of the soul, Hela thought of her father Odin. Maybe this was his way of dealing with her. And letting this hateful mortal bring her here might be his idea. When she thought that her soul was annihilated, it was Odin's idea. Hela could not help but curse loudly. Unfortunately, her curse was destined to be inaudible to Odin. Even Yejuju, who heard her curse, pretended not to hear it. Hearing Hela's horrified screams and curses, Yejuju also breathed a sigh of relief, secretly proud of his guess that his guess was indeed correct. His guess was, no matter who the soul of the sacrifice was, as long as the person was taken down from this altar, the soul gem would devour the soul of this person. But the difference is just whether the person offering and the person being offered are close friends and relatives, and whether they can be recognized by the soul gem. The Red Skull stood aside, listening to Hela's curse, cursing the legendary god King Odin, and began to doubt Yejuju's identity. At the same time, he was also glad that he did not rashly conflict with Yejuju, otherwise, once he offended Yejuju, he would not know how he died. Although he has been here for dozens or hundreds of years, he has not lived enough, and he still thinks that one day he can get rid of the curse of the soul gem and leave this damn place. Guessing that Yejuju's identity may be a person in the god realm, the Red Skull dared not be presumptuous, and quietly stepped back a few steps, away from Yejuju. Hela fell very quickly, but in just a dozen seconds, there was no more sound of Hela below. At the same time, Yejuju also heard the system prompt. Congratulations to the host for completing the world's main quest, Hela's Revenge. Help Asgard repel the army of the Dark Elves and stop Hela's ambition to dominate the 9 realms, and reward 100,000 experience points and a special reward. Tip: the host's level has been upgraded, and the current level is 43. Strength and physical strength are increased by 1. Intelligence, spirit, and agility are increased by 2, and they have been automatically assigned to the attribute panel. For details, please check the host yourself. Tip: the host's level has been upgraded, and the current level is 44. Strength and physical strength are increased by 1. Intelligence, spirit, and agility are increased by 2, and they have been automatically assigned to the attribute panel. For details, please check the host yourself. Special reward: the host can use the same attribute treasure to give himself an attribute ability. After listening to the system prompt, Yejuju was happy, but also wondered how the system knew that he would ask Odin for the eternal fire. It actually knew that he wanted to get Odin's eternal fire before issuing the task. He didn't know that the so-called special rewards were given by the system according to Yejuju's actual situation. Otherwise, how could the special rewards given every time be so appropriate? In general, this system is actually for Yejuju. In any case, the mission has been completed, and the level has been upgraded by 2 levels. Finally, the trip to Asgard was not in vain. Yejuju's strength has been greatly improved, and he is more confident in dealing with Thanos and his army. Glancing at the Red Skull, who was as quiet as a cicada pretending to be a transparent man, Yejuju was not used to the Red Skull, who was not venomous at this time. It was because the impression of his venomous tongue in the movie was too deep, and Yejuju was not used to staying quietly aside at this time. However, it was none of Yejuju's business whether the Red Skull was like this. At least in the play, the Red Skull did not bring any trouble to the Earth, and there was no need to kill him now. Without saying hello to the Red Skull, he couldn't get the soul gem anyway, so he took back the sky shuttle and wrapped Hela's body and went straight down the mountain. As he walked, Yejuju opened the panel to check his current attributes. Name: Yejuju. Age: 16. Occupation: mechanical hunter. Level: level 44, 5800/62,000. Attributes: strength: 157. Physical strength: 69. Intelligence: 50. Spirit: 140. Agility: 102. Speed: 189 m/s. Energy: 19,140 points/minute. Recovery speed. Professional talents and skills: 1 Advanced Combat Master, 2 Senior Mechanical Master, 3 Mental Power, Junior God of War level, can control 10 Blood Shadow flying knives. Pets: Mechanical 2-headed dragon, Tiamat, Mechanical 3-headed dog, Cerberus, Mecha Warrior, General. Practice skills: 5 Hearts to the Sky, passive skill, perfect level. From now on, every time the level increases, the attribute points obtained will be doubled. 9-layer Ice Sword, 6th layer -4 times the power, Control Master Secret Technique 310. The second form, the 11th form, increases the number of control of 13 flying knives in total. The secret method of escape, the first level, increases the speed of the flying form by 100 meters/second, increases the defense power of the second form of defense form by 10,000 kilograms, increases the third form's attack power is 10,000 kilograms. Special weapon, Dunshinchuo, defense form, flight form, attack form. Mount, Chasing the Wind, Transformers. Special space, 10,000 square meters of machinery manufacturing space, some materials and sundries. Drawings, 0. Special permissions, 0. Note, there are 0 times left for the time travel function. Good guy. After strength and spirit, another attribute exceeded 100, which really made Yejuju secretly happy. Returning to the palace of the God King of Asgard, I met Odin again. The old guy was still as steady as a rock and didn't mention the eternal fire at all. As if he didn't care about Hela's life or death at all, the old god's presence made Yejuju want to give him a slap to vent his anger. After thinking about it, I decided to forget it. After all, I hadn't gotten the benefits yet and it was someone else's territory, so I endured this and said, "Your Majesty the God King, you have lived up to your expectations, Hela's matter has been resolved. Only Hela's physical body still has to be handed over to you. After all, that's always your daughter."